Let's hear it for Sean P. McCarthy.
Thank you all for being here. I'm glad New York City is back. I moved to New York about 9 years ago. Obviously very expensive. I think I first noticed that not long after I moved here. I started seeing multiple different posters for a lost dog with a $1,000 reward. Really puts things in perspective when you realize every month to survive in this city, you could work 160 hours at a minimum wage job, or you could just kidnap one dog. You kidnap 3 dogs, you're middle class. You can make a lot of money as a dog walker if you just change where the walk ends. New York's great though. They say New York's the greatest city in the world. And I think it probably is because we destroyed the rest of this country. We're the champions. We're the Muhammad Ali of cities. And that's true. Like you look at the 2008 financial crisis, 10 million illegal foreclosures, all those private equity firms that smashed up those Midwest manufacturing jobs and sent them all overseas. That's all based out of New York. New York is like if you could rent an apartment on Godzilla and then lecture the people running away from him about how they don't know what real pizza tastes like. No, after you rebuild your house, you gotta get better water. That's the secret for the New York pizza, baby. I'm 32 years old. I've noticed that nobody my age owns a house. I have one friend who owns a house. And his strategy was he married a girl whose dad owns 2 houses. Millennials are bringing back getting married for land and titles again. Game of Thrones was our documentary. Not to get all political, but here's what I'll say politics-wise. The only thing I really believe politically is I do believe the government should spend more money trying to help people. And sometimes you say that and somebody will say something to the effect of, well, the government's broke. The government doesn't have any money. Well, the government will give you trillions and trillions of dollars through the Federal Reserve if you're a bank. So the government is broke the same way former LA Clippers owner Donald Sterling doesn't have a dollar if you're a homeless person. But if you're a 20-something gold digger and you want to suck his dick, grab the car I bought you, we're going to Neiman Marcus. The bankers suck the government's dick, the government comes in our faces, and this is why I'm not allowed to be a high school civics teacher. And people get so angry about the idea that the government would help poor people or whatever. Like the Minnesota Vikings, the NFL team, they built a new stadium. They spent about $500 million in taxpayer dollars building this thing. And then right after they built it, Minnesota had one of the coldest winters on record. So somebody on the internet started a rumor that they were going to allow homeless people to sleep in the stadium so that they wouldn't freeze to death. And everybody got very angry. They were like, but we didn't pay for handouts for bums. Well, we paid to create people with brain damage, not shelter them. If we let the homeless in the stadium, they're just going to throw up and get in fights and leave their trash everywhere. And if they want to do that, they should buy a ticket like everybody else. I watch a lot of cable news. Also at cable news, you'll sometimes hear somebody say something to the effect of, poor people are poor because they are lazy. And it's like, person on TV, you talk for a living. That is literally the laziest job on earth. Nobody's ever lifted 100 pounds up a flight of stairs for work and gone, whew, damn. At least I don't have to give anyone my opinion. 7 figures a year to make words with my mouth? No, thank you. I'd rather just be on food stamps to support my passion for moving grand pianos. Politically, well, one other thing, the only thing I really believe politically, besides the government should spend money to help people, I believe that politics, people think it's complicated, can be summed up with one sentence. Everybody with more than $10 million is your enemy, and everything else is noise to distract you from that fact. And yeah, but there you go, I appreciate that, but there's a lot of noise out there, I read Forbes magazine and sometimes they'll have these articles like, aren't you proud of this woman? This woman just became the first black lesbian CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Aren't you proud of her? And it's like, no, I'm actually deeply concerned that I have my first black lesbian enemy. My enemies are setting aside their cultural differences and learning to work together. As though it was some sort of budding cop movie. I think what I learned from the 2008 financial crisis is that finance means you can steal money from people as long as you do it in an extremely boring way. Just think about it, it's easy to call 911 and go, hello police, people have broken into my house. Much more difficult to call 911 and go, hello police, numerous bankers have been bundling high-risk mortgages together and then selling them as though they were AAA investments while ignoring the internal review process at their bank, which have on multiple occasions alerted the CEOs of these banks that fraud was occurring, and yet these CEOs still signed off on their revenue statements in clear violation of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. I'm in the lobby at Citigroup. When will the squad car get here? I'll tell you something non-political that happened to me. I got hit by a car when I was on my bicycle. Or as the insurance company put it, I attacked a car with my bicycle. I was riding my bike out in Brooklyn. I get hit from behind, and the driver actually keeps accelerating. So I get dragged along the street for 3 to 5 seconds. And the cops asked her later why she didn't stop after she hit me, and she said that she was scared. And I just can't imagine what a traumatizing experience running me over was for her. Having to watch helplessly as a 120-pound man is flung underneath your 2-ton SUV, possibly to puncture your tires with the pointiness of his bones. If you're hit by a car in New York, actually the car insurance company will take care of your medical bills. But I did not know that at the time. So I'm lying there in the street, and this guy comes over to me, and he goes, hey man, it's going to be okay. The ambulance is on its way. And in my head, I'm thinking, ambulance, those are expensive. There's got to be an Uber driver with a tarp around here. Because I'm not desperately poor, but I'm poor enough that when I hear somebody took an ambulance ride, I'm like, to where? To your summer home in the Hamptons? Oh, look at Mr. Moneybags over here, doesn't have to walk off his stroke. But I did get in the car, or I did get in the ambulance, and I went to the hospital, and they make you get naked so they can make sure you're not bleeding out of random places. And the thing is, I'm not trying to be gross, this is relevant. I had masturbated the night before. Because sometimes an attractive girl likes your Facebook status, and one thing leads to another. But it's relevant because I get naked and this medical doctor, this very nice lady, she looks me up and down, and then she says to me, is that a growth on your penis? And I look down and I realize, and I have to tell this woman who put herself through medical school, trained professional, I have to tell her, no, that's actually dry tissue paper. And when I find out who put it there, my roommate is a real prankster. But I wanted to sue the woman who hit me for personal injury. And I called up a lawyer and I told him the story, which is basically I'm in a lot of pain. I missed a couple weeks of work, but I don't have any broken bones, don't have any permanent injuries. And the lawyer said to me over the phone, he says, okay, well, it doesn't sound like you have what the New York courts define as serious injury, which is what they need in order to sue. However, if, say, maybe a week from now you remember something you're not telling me, you can always call me back and we'll sue. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody wink over the phone. That's what that sounds like. I know I could have called him back and been like, hey, sorry, forgot to mention this, but I'm paralyzed from the neck down. It's been hard to remember since the coma. Well, hey, I appreciate you all coming out to this very wonderful bar. It's one of my favorites in New York, except my favorite bar in New York. They have an arcade punching bag machine. And on it says, if you beat the high score on the punching bag machine, you'll get a $30 credit towards your bar tab. Because if there is one person we want to be extremely drunk, it is the strongest and most violent person who has ever been in that bar. I'm Sean P. McCarthy. Thank you very much.